Once upon a time, there were 4 magical sisters. The first sister showed promise from the start. Everything she touched would rearrange itself to perfection. The parents were thrilled. They took her to the grandmother, who taught her the art of detailed perfection. The second sister was quick to learn. No sooner did she show her abilities, quickly outsmarting her family. This sister had the power of creating. She took any material and made impressive sculptures, music, and handy tools. Grandmother struggled to control the second sister's ability, doing her best to stop impulsive creating and teach the art of equations and formulas. The third sister's gift began developing from birth. Her voice grasped every key and released songs of birds. Her voice danced along the edge of the room, enveloping any negative spirit. The grandmother found this also difficult to control, but held tight to her granddaughters, hoping that she could mold their powers into something that would fit suitably. The fourth sister watched as her others sisters developed their powers, each one more powerful than the next. It came time for the fourth sister to perform her gift, her power. The family watched as the fourth sister opened her palms, also curious about what would come from her heart's passion. All at once, her fingers unfolded, and an explosion of color, sparks, sound blasted through the room, through their bodies, knocking them all to the floor. The parents were stunned. The sisters laughed. What was that? They giggled and pointed. Talk about powers, they teased. The fourth sister clenched her fist, hoping to halt any further damage. She ran from the group without understanding this experience. Mother and father told grandmother about the incident. "Is there anything we can do for her?" asked Mother. "Of course not," blurted grandmother. "Anything that chaotic can't be controlled. It is useless." So for years, the fourth sister watched her other sisters develop their skills, and the more chaotic their skills became, the more grandmother told them it was useless. Of course, the girls continued to use their magic, just not how instructed. But the fourth sister watched, and sometimes she would unclench her fists, and she would pour out her own interpretation of the sisters' powers. The second sister gasped. "Copycat!" The third sister teased her, and the first sister tried all she could to perfect the fourth sister. But grandmother's words echoed, "Useless!" Years later, grandmother passed, and as the sisters grew, they all went their own ways, sewing their magic into the careers that fit them, that suited them. But the fourth sister traveled. Looking for answers to be useful in the world. One day, as she traveled through a thick, lush forest, a magical deer, walked up to her and asked, "Why do you clench your fists like so?" The deer nudged her hands with its nose. "If I let my palms open, I will be useless because I was never trained to control my powers." The deer turned away, looking into the distance. But before leaping away, she asked, "How do you know your powers are useless if you fear the struggle to use them?" She looked at her fists, ready to tell the story of long ago. But when she looked up to speak, all she saw was the night sky, framed by the tall trees of the forest. She looked at her hands, slowly unfolding one finger at a time, shaking with nerves at the idea of failure, uncontrolling, unknowing without grandmother. One finger left to open. She closed her eyes, and a sudden burst lifted through the ground, out through her fingers. She opened her eyes and her jaw dropped to see the world evolve into colors she had never seen before. The leaves coated in a glistening shimmer, the sky full of every shade of sunset colors. Music filled the space between her, and there in front of her she saw grandmother, and her grandmother's mother, and her mother, and all the mothers, dancing and celebrating this moment, because her powers were never meant to be taught. They were never meant to be controlled or perfected. They were meant to be used.